right? We all think we like free, and sometimes we've had some great things happen that were free. We've gotten really great free things. But when it comes to your self care, when it comes to your yoga practice, maybe specifically, I really want to talk to you about the cost of this idea of being free. So, there's multiple reasons why you can't afford the cost of free. The most common way is, you'll often hear it's you get what you pay for, right? That sometimes if you really want quality, you may have to pay for it. And that's often the case. It's not always the case. But especially if we're talking about your fitness, your health, your well being, a safe yoga practice, I think even more reason why you really want to make sure that you're getting a quality product. And maybe quality means that it's a very safe practice. Knowing if you just pick a class on YouTube, that's a random person. I mean, I've done this. I used YouTube when I first started. I have nothing against YouTube. I'm on YouTube, right? I hope you will use my free short flows. I only put short flows on YouTube, but you know me. You hopefully know that they're going to be safe. But part of the reason I went on YouTube was because when I first started yoga, I would go on YouTube and it was just like picking things out of thin air. I don't know that instructor. I don't know their training. I don't know what style of yoga they're going to do. I don't know what poses are going to be coming. And also, I was too early, and you might be too, in my yoga practice to know what to do if I'm in a class that's over my head. If I knew what modifications to make, what alignment adjustments to make, I wasn't prepared to do that. I wasn't at a place where I could do that for myself. And so the cost of taking that free class, I was either frustrated, felt in over my head, or potentially was trying to put myself in positions and poses I wasn't ready for, nor where I knew what the proper alignment was. And that's not a safe practice, but it was free, right? And instead, maybe paying for a class to go and my training. I'm a 500 registered yoga teacher. I've taught over 1,700 hours of yoga. I have continuing education hours, and I'm consistently practicing and learning and leading yoga. And so, my credentials. I'm happy talking to you about my trainings, the hours I've put in to try and continue to grow in my expertise in leading classes that are safe and good. And I'm happy talking about that with you. Any yoga teacher who's worth their salt should be able to talk to you about that, and happy to do so. And maybe, we need to pay for that expertise, right? You can find medical advice free on the internet too. But most of us still end up going to a doctor, right, that we trust and we pay to go, right, because we want quality medical advice. But yet so often when it comes to self-care and yoga and taking care of ourselves in that way, we look for, free, right, as if we're not willing to invest in that for ourselves, which might, I don't know, keep us from the doctor. I've attended a few yoga classes in person that were free, and most of them I didn't really benefit from. They weren't a good match for my style. Many of them I thought were unsafe. The instructor was not well trained, didn't have any training, or was too early on to do so well. And they weren't able to tailor the course in the class to those who attended. And so, I've been to classes where someone says at the beginning of class that they've never taken yoga before. And then the poses that are cued are not beginner level poses. And that shouldn't happen. When I'm teaching a class, if someone is brand new, I make adjustments. I offer more accommodations, more modifications. I will change my plan on the fly to make sure I can reach my students where they're at. It's also why I offer a beginner's course, an online beginner's course, so that people can learn foundations, so that they feel more comfortable, whether they're going to come to studio or take just YouTube classes. That at least if you're going to do YouTube and start that way or do that, at least if you took a beginner's course where you knew what the poses were, how your body should feel, where your position should be, at least you'd be safer, right? And so that's why I offer that course and really feel strongly about that course so that people can practice safely. Because I've been to classes where people didn't, and that we came because it was free. And most of the times I regret it. I would have rather have paid a lot more for a class I knew was going to be safe and good and rewarding. But beyond just financial, I also want to talk about the fact that you can't afford the cost of free, not just in money, but in the value it's putting or not putting on your self-care. That if you are unwilling to commit those minutes, right? That we're like, I just want free whenever I'm free, right? Free can take on, I want it to be free in cost. But I hear a lot of times that like, oh yeah, whenever I get a free minute or some free time, I really want to come to yoga, right? That we're just waiting for this time to free up, right? We're waiting for this to happen. Well, we start happening. At least I haven't found that. Like, oh, whenever I get to the other side of this, there'll just be something else that's filling my time, right? And so when we think of free and the cost of free in our self-care, of thinking about doing it when I become free and have free time, it's also never going to happen, or it's going to be really inconsistent. And so thinking about the cost of that, if you aren't willing to invest an hour a week to feel better, you're never going to have that self-care in a consistent way. And so you have to be willing to invest that time and make that time, not wait for free time. You have to make your time available. And it's important for you to mark that off. And then when you do mark that off, you want to find an instructor that you trust, that has the training that you think is important. And remember that you're not just paying for the minutes of the class, but you're paying for that expertise. You're paying for all that training and the hours and the investments that they've made to be able to give you that class at that level, right? Just like what we invest for our medical care or for our education, right? We want those people who've invested their own time and their own resources to become experts in that field, right? So think about that. Plus, also right now with the pandemic that's been going on, businesses all over are closing. And yeah, there are a ton of really well-known, famous YouTube channels out there for free yoga, and they're great. I have nothing against them. They make a ton of money on the ads. My YouTube money makes no money. My YouTube channel, makes no money, right? I'm not getting sponsors and money from ads for that. I'm not big. I'm not a big name. So I need the help of my community, right? And I need people to come to class, and I need people to invest in my course or take my membership so that I can continue to invest in my business and take additional trainings so that I can offer classes and that I can continue to be a yoga instructor, right? That as small businesses, if there's a small yoga studio in your community, if you don't live where I live, think about that. Like, do you want them to stay? And if so, then people need to support them too. right? And the work that they're doing. And so check them out, see if they're, safe, do your due diligence, right? But keep that in mind too, that the cost of free could put some yoga studios out of business right now, right? But also the cost of free of your time, right? I think that is often the biggest thing that people tell me. Oh, yes, when I'm free, I totally want to come to yoga. That you're not going to have a ton of free time to show up. You've got to value your self-care enough to mark that time off and say you're going to do it. Or to take that beginner's yoga class online to start learning so that you can feel good coming to class. Whatever it is, now's the time, right? That you can't afford the cost of free anymore. Free time isn't a thing, at least not in my world, that you've got to make that time and make that commitment, put some skin in the game, mark it off on your calendar, and meet yourself on the mat. And I hope you find that it's really valuable and worth it. All right, everybody. I appreciate you hanging around, listening, and I'll see you next time.